This happened after a Christmas Eve party. When everyone went home, I decided to stay because my cousin and I were watching a movie. My uncle, who used to walk his dogs into the woods next to a park, went off to take them out. Before this, my aunt told him to not do that because it was too dark out there. It was around 4 or 5 a.m. He did not care much and went off anyway, and my aunt was still worried, so I went along with him. Once there, anything wrong seemed to happen. Everything was quiet. My uncle and his dogs were having a relaxing walk as usual, and I wasn't really paying attention to the surrounding when suddenly the dogs went still. This wasn't that strange. They always stopped their way to stare and bark to the other animals they noticed, like rats, birds, insects, or other dogs. However, this time was different. When the dogs got still, my uncle and I noticed something was going wrong. The dogs weren't angry or curious. They were kinda nervous, anxious, and afraid. One of the dogs, the largest one, was growling and shaking. My uncle started to get worried about the situation. Then we heard it. There were people in the woods. We didn't see how many because of the darkness. However, they were saying something. We all gather here by the blood of we, thee and thy. As my uncle and I heard that, he yelled for his dogs to follow him out of the woods. As we all left, he turned his head back, and he only saw a slight movement of the branches. Perhaps because those people were trying to hide. After what happened, he stopped walking his dogs near to those woods, even when it gets dark. So, to the strangers in the woods, let's not meet. To start, let me explain myself. I am 5 feet and 7 inches. I weighed 50 kilograms, and I was 16 at the time of the encounter. I am a multi-sport athlete, and I have insomnia. This all happened around 2 a.m. on August 10, 2019. I had been over to my best friend's place because she had just returned home from a vacation, and she had birthday presents for me, hoodies and gummies if you are curious. I had spent almost an hour there already and wanted to head back home soon because honestly, my town is scary at night. Drug dealers, rapists, and murderers, you know the deal. So I waved goodbye to my best friend and started walking down her street. I guess a party had just let up because behind me, at the end of the road, about 20 or 30 yards from where I'm standing, there were a couple of men walking across the crosswalk. They were both pretty tall, I'm guessing between 5 feet 11 inches and 6 feet and 3 inches. The two seemed harmless at first when I looked in their direction, but soon they came to a stop. They were both looking at me. At this point, I felt uncomfortable, so I just kept walking. That's when I overheard what one of them said. "Hey, that's a girl." At this, I whipped my head around. They were starting to walk in my direction, and one of the two men had moved over towards the sidewalk, where there were no lights. I knew at this point that something wasn't right, and I began to pick up my pace. They were still getting closer. I didn't know where the second guy was, but when I looked back, the first guy was still following me down the middle of the road. I think that they were planning to cut me off and try to trap me between the two of them. The minute I was about 13 yards from the T intersection, I started to run, and that's when the yelling started. Oh great, now she's running. I hooked a sharp right and then left. I could still hear them behind me, and at this point, all I knew was that I couldn't stop moving. I had to lose them somehow. I was coming up to an apartment building with a small parking lot behind it. There were no lights. I made the split-second decision to veer off into the parking lot, and I squeezed myself under one of the cars. I didn't know how long I waited there. It could have been a minute, but it felt like a lifetime. I watched the two men run past. They didn't bother to check under the cars, which was definitely in my favor. The minute I felt that I was safe, I backtracked and took a different route back to my home. I was too scared to take the main route, in the fear I would have bumped into them. I know what I'm about to say is stupid, but I didn't go to the police. I wouldn't have been able to give a proper description of the men, because I hadn't seen their faces. If there's anything I learned from my experience, it's that no matter who you are, you need to be extremely careful. You think that the part of town or city you live in is safe, but that isn't the case. There is no protective barrier to keep out people with bad intentions. Please, whatever you do, watch your surroundings as if your life depends on it. If I had been listening to my music and not paying attention, I hate to think what could have happened to me. I hope that no one else has to experience the fear I did. It was almost like prey being chased by predators. And to those men who followed me, let's never meet again. This happened when I was about 12 years old, in Kansas. I was sitting in my bedroom playing Halo. My parents were both out running errands and my sister was at work, so I was home alone with my two dogs, a little terrier and a Bichon Frise. Not exactly the attack dog breed, more like early warning systems at best. I had been home alone before. It really was not a big deal. We lived in a pretty safe part of town that had never had any problems before, other than one time where some people sprayed KKK graffiti on some public park equipment. Anyway, I was kicking back in my chair, Doritos in one hand, control in the other, full gamer mode, when I heard the very distinct sound of my door open and close like someone had just come in. The room I was in faced in such a way where I could not see the front door. My dogs got up and ran into the living room, and so I just assumed my parents were home. I shouted for my mom to confirm this, and I heard no response. My dogs also were not barking like they normally do when someone gets home. I thought that was kind of weird, so I paused my game and walked out into the living room. There was nothing. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I had heard someone come in, clear as day. I was not wearing headphones, and I had the TV turned down and I was listening to the music. It couldn't have been the game. I immediately went to my parents' closet and grabbed our shotgun, like a good Midwest boy tends to do. The only problem is I did not know where my dad kept the shells, so my plan was to fake it and hope they didn't have any gun on their own. At this point, doubt started to kick in. Had I actually heard the door? Was it the game? But then I thought, why would the dogs jump up like if it was? I walked back into my living room, unloaded shotgun, pointing in front of me. I tried to call my dad. He did not pick up. I tried to call my mom. She also did not pick up. I tried to call two of my best friends. They did not pick up. My 12-year-old mind immediately jumped to, holy shit, they are all dead. And so for the first time in my life, I had to call 911. The operator picked up. I explained the situation with tears in my eyes from fear. She told me to stay calm and that the police were on their way. The difficult part about staying calm was that there was a hallway by my front door. I knew in my heart of hearts that there was someone in the hallway about to jump out and really fuck my day. My two dogs were right by me, also staring towards the hallway. They did not help the fear. I stood there rooted to the spot for what felt like an hour, but was actually only a few minutes. The operator's voice in my ear telling me to stay calm. Thankfully, my parents opened the front door. They shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" I explained to my father the situation we are currently in. He grabs his pistol from the front room, and we go a-hunting. I always thought it would be cool to go around clearing rooms and shit like SWAT teams, but fuck if I wasn't about to shit myself every time we opened a bedroom door. We didn't find anything. The police arrived shortly after and told us that this had been happening over the past few weeks. People wait until homeowners leave, check the door, and if it's unlocked, they go in and take valuables. They said whoever it was probably left when they heard that someone was home, which never quite sat right with me, because I only heard the door open and close once. Ever since this happened, I have triple checked every door and window lock whenever I am home alone. To whoever walked into my house that day, I never saw you, and I really hope I never do. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening and hope you enjoyed the stories. If so, please subscribe to our channel. It'd be an amazing support to help us share more spooky videos in the future. Also, if you have any scary experience you like to share, please send us your story on the email in the description below. So, until then, have a wicked day.